What will you think if I sing out a tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears, I will sing you a song. I try to not sing out of key. The chorus, everybody. Ooh, I get by, little help from my friends. I get high, little help from my friends.
Hello, I'm Leopoldo Sigel, and I'm hosting tonight. I've been hosting Poetry Bridge for 16 years now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. As of next month. But it's only possible because of the support, genuine support of Pete and Cam, who are the C&P of C&P Coffee. Pete's here tonight. He's shy, so he probably won't allow his face to be seen in a public thing, but I'm very deeply appreciative to both Cam and Pete, and especially Pete. Back in, after about 6 years of Poetry Bridge, this poet contacted me in 2016. And he was interested in reading, excuse me, because he'd gotten a grant to, some money, and to, I guess part of the deal is he had to do 4 public readings, and he wanted to know if he could do one here. I didn't know him, but it seemed like a good idea, and I explained that we just schedule stuff, starting in September. We had everybody scheduled. And so in September, this poet and Carrie Cox were the featured readers. And I remember that night very well because the poet was reading all these poems, and I really liked them, but there was this one where the last line got to me, and it said, "And if I could choose," which is the name of the poem, "if I could choose, I simply would choose to be kind." And it didn't change my life, but it did in some ways, because from that point on, my only focus at how I began to see the world and see myself in the world was through seeing and trying to be kind versus cruelty, which I see all around. But as I got to, of course, that poet was Koon Woon, who we're here to, I think honor is the right word, but not just as a poet, but as a person, as a human being. And Koon, I just want to say that even though I've only known you for 9 years, it seems longer. And I realize it's because I feel a kindred spirit around things that you hold dear, that I hold dear as well. And if there's anybody that seems to epitomize kindness, it is Koon. People have testified to me because of it just recently in the organizing of various acts of kindness that he has shown to people who needed it desperately. And so we're in need of it, and he showed up and continues to do that. We became collaborators. I think it's Alaska House, right, is where you live, and we had a reading there. David Fewster was there, remember? And we did a reading for the people in Alaska House who couldn't come to readings. That was kind of the beginning of some collaborations. And later, Koon and I were the original editors of Breathe, a magazine committed to the intersection of art and social justice. And we're here tonight to bring what we bring, which is our art, our poetry, our love of it. And we have 14 wonderful poets who have agreed to come and read. And I'll explain more about how that's going to work. But we're first going to hear from Koon himself. I'm not just introducing you as a poet, but as a friend. Please, a warm welcome for Koon Woon.
Okay. You hear me okay?
Yeah, how you feeling, baby?
Okay.
Good to go?
Okay. You will relax into this poem as you be pleased, expect nothing. You be pleased, expect a new layer of skin as to face friends and foes alike in the double crosses of crooked roads, in the ordinary travels in the day, taking you to the feeble thoughts of daily consciousness. And so let your toes go dead. Let your ankles go limp. And let the calves sleep. And paralyze thighs and hips. Well, you do not need all this heavy machinery now, for you want to relax into poem, into sleep. The day has been extraordinarily hard, for danger was carried by each car on the street, and every 10th mine is lethal. And you might meet it anywhere, waiting for the bus at the deserted street, or at the counter that serves chimney soot, and square faces and rough hands objectify you. But never mind, relax your abdomen. Exhale. Exhale the stagnant air of cities, and dream of stars with the heart. And keep your neck above the water, and let your head ascend. Be lighter, lighter than the cares of charity. Be lighter and travel farther, and float away. So now, as you enter into this poem, in finding a drinking fountain that leads through water to the master of water, the keeper of archives, turn your stereo down, turn down the volume of anxiety like 2 pips of an apple, and tune in, turn on, and drop out. When you wake, it'll be fine, but it's been 30 years. Never mind, give it all up. Take your $5 bills and take your pennies and start anew. Start by relaxing into this poem. Okay, now everybody's relaxed. I help myself to relax that way too. Friends, I take my hats off to you for honoring me tonight, my work, and as the cipher the Czech Nobel laureate poet says, and I paraphrase, poetry is not what it seems, and that goes for the poet too. The kind of critic I like is a sparrow that clutches the telephone wires to frisk out insincere notes of lovers. My first book, The Truth in Rented Rooms, didn't come out. I was nearly 50 years old. I'd been a boy in rural China without electricity and running water. I came all the way to the US in 1960 and participated in the space and cyber age, and now at the dawn of the AI and the quantum age. My life had been hard to be afflicted by mental illness most of my life, and consequently, social rejection, institutionalization, homelessness and isolation, and of course, poverty. But thanks to the ingenuity of mankind, medicine helped me, and so psychological and psychiatric modalities. And thanks to all the libraries in the United States, large and small, I learned most of what I learned there. And thanks to the kindness of the average taxpayer, I've been on disability most of my life, and borrowing student loans to be a perpetual student, and finding the time and resources to be a self-appointed editor and publisher of a small literary press, Goldfish Press, and I edited the sporadic magazine, Chrysanthemum. I first settled in Aberdeen, Washington, attended high school there, came up to UW to study math and philosophy in 1969, and except for a few years in Eugene, Oregon, and San Francisco, I've been in Seattle since 1969. I've been in West Seattle for the most recent 10 years. I've been coming to the C&P Coffee since 1996, and I met Leopoldo. We'll team up on all kinds of poetry venues and projects. I really wish to thank Pete and Cameron, the proprietors of C&P, for treating me so kindly and extending the community they have built up with goodwill to me. I've extended the poetry community as well. I cannot tell you everything about myself tonight, and I won't, so you just Google me, Koon Woon, you find all kinds of crap about me. My book's in libraries, and the summer purchasable online. Tonight is a celebration of friendship, community, and poetry, and so we'll have the reading tonight. And I won't read too many of my poems. I've included a couple dozen of my poems in the anthology, which the readers will get a copy, and the other people who contributed poetry will get a copy. It'll be on sale for any to the public. But I just want to read a few poems to to characterize the times that we're living in. My teacher, Nelson Bentley at the University of Washington, was a very kind and generous man. He performed great service to poetry, and I try to emulate him to build communities, real or imagined, in his footsteps. And he had a great teacher, W.H. Auden, whose succinct little poem I'm going to read now and show that poetry is timeless. This is a poem by W.H. Auden, Epitaph on a Tyrant. Perfection of a kind was what he was after. And the poetry invented was easier to understand. He knew human folly like the back of his hand and was greatly interested in armies and fleets. When he laughed, respectable spectators burst with laughter. And when he cried, little children die in the streets. And that's the kind of a credo I got from studying with Nelson Bentley. He was a very generous and kind man, and my family's there. Okay, so where to start? I lived in public housing in the International Terrace in Chinatown. The poem is called Number 1105, now a year later. I moved in approximately 1995, 96. It was so this year, this poem's about that year. Whatever the language, theft seeps into the public domain. And I write to you now of the rain falling on the kingdom, that it falls equally on doorknobs of silver and doorknobs of copper. And the longer the civilization, the longer its corruption of ancient texts, of hinges on tombs. And today, while a lamb may hang in the butcher's window, tomorrow might very well be a dog. And with this long view of things, I can see beyond the hills surrounding this part of Seattle, which used to be mudflats, and now an industry of mindlessness built on violence in this neighborhood where the police are not helpful. And that's why it rains. In China, we say, when it rains, heaven is answering. And heaven is straight up, but laden with treasures, you'll go straight down. Okay. When you have the most powerful military in the world, you can just sort of take what you want. And when somebody complains, you say, come fight us. Well, most of the people in the world are peaceful, which I'm glad. But some people are very warlike. And this poem is written quite some time ago in the style of Chinese poetry. A slow arched cock calls the sage. His rope is open to the wind. Such a slow journey, cats will sleep. The western capital will change hands. Out with beggars, the sage sees red apples whose insides are rotting while the outside remains fair. The sage sees the nation as a buck, well-armored buck in lay fall, who if a wind blows him on his back is the end. Going from gate to gate, the sage knocks lightly so as not to disturb the entertainment there. When granaries deplete the feet-mounted archers, in song and dance crescendo inside imperial walls, it's time for beggars to go begging. The slow ox cart hauls the sage. His rope is open to the wind. Ruffians intimidate the weak and the poor. In the dead of the night, an arrow shot to the emperor's door. This, I told you I had mental illness starting in my late 20s, and had a complete psychotic breakdown in San Francisco, which I was hospitalized for many months. And took a long time for recovery because the medicine is not, doesn't work on everybody the same way. Finally, I got the right medicine in about about the age of 50. And then I finished college, which I started in high school, got my degree, and that's where I met Miss Peirce in Antioch University. She's here tonight, she'll be reading. This is about the last hospitalization I was in, the last time I got out. There was no bicameral dichotomy of mind the last time I got out the bin. The snowflake was a snowflake, and the thought of the snowflake was the thought of it. It was simply cold reality. And no matter how much I am sexually attracted to mannequins in store windows, reality was hard, and hard it comes. The logical conclusion has to be, someone's looking at Colfax or cold cash the wrong way, and it was not me. For wherever there's money, the world is busy, as in wherever there's honey, the bee is busy. And women can smile and men can get hard about cold cash. And all over, thieves and lawyers discuss contraband in private stash. This time, as I left the hospital with $25 for cab and a hot lunch, I had no bicameral dichotomy of mind. It was all due to the courtesy of the police and the ambulance who had to keep busy in the high-rises in the city that dwarf and keep the hospital hidden, and it's not listed or advertised in the phone book for a revolutionary in the tenement nook. This time was not for simple crooks, nor for all the fists in Manhattan, nor for the piss in China. This time was the way I lived, the way I had to live. There was no Zen verbal tricks. I was born in a house of red bricks, and I came halfway across the world to live in a house of wood. Then the sheriff took me outside. In the snow I stood. A homeless man is a homeless mind, because that's the way he has to live, and no powers will give. And so across man's boundless mind he roams, and never finds he a rightful home. Well, we still have that problem today, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now, this is about my family. We're immigrants. We're 4 generations of immigrants. I'm the 4th generation. Because the immigration laws were not favorable to Chinese, we had to buy false immigration papers to come to this country in some certain cases. And this is the something about my father, and he was the quarantine in off San Francisco, Angel Island, before he come ashore. This is called fortune telling. How sometimes in graveyard hours, in the kitchen of a Chinese American restaurants, all lights flicked off to save one naked bulb, sitting at makeshift tables, sitting on milk crates. How my father, in a soft sweater, now softened by age and gradually recognized by his competitors, which are other Chinese American restaurants, pizza parlors, Mexican restaurants, and the like. Now 3 a.m., the walk-in refrigerator hums a forlorn tune, or the hobo sometimes hear the rails humming. We have finished eating after the whole town is eating. In the necessary fury of work, we have overlooked our simple needs. He repeats his story. Build your future in the foundation your forebears, that someday I'm to understand. Now the light in the naked bulb is frazzled and somewhat eerie. But there's really no need to turn on all the white lights of the kitchen. And after all, there's only us here, and we can talk in the dark without losing comprehension, even without looking at each other. How my father is back curving more each year from the weight of the morning air, the ever-increasing weight of life and 8 children, all permissible dreams and sorrows clinking on like grapes, that in the unofficial history of his veins, bombs dropped near his village, metal and body parts flew. The naked bulb here's the same naked bulb in Angel Island. Detained there, he was an immigrant, a Chinese immigrant. How his back would arc more, that over 40 years he's been off the walk. The only use is curved back now is to use it as a bow. Take his bow of William Tell. Take his children and grandchildren, their arrows, and from his curved back, shoot him to the stars. Now this is a romantic story. He died young, labored away his time rather than love, and consequently he accumulated money. His oldest son, whose mind was mended by electric currents, has a receptive mistress in every town. He visits every town as a salesman, and the competitors are all by his powers of persuasion and gradually emit his gift, but first they isolate his history from all other histories. My father was buried in the same cemetery as Bruce Lee. I'm not comparing heroes. My father was not a hero. His grandfather was another immigrant from another country, from another century, to these same lands when rails were young. My father and my blood is precursors going back to the dawn of man, and their blood is his blood, their history, his history. And so my father tells the oldest son, consider the foolish man who tells an ox to climb a tree. How my father now lives again in the Chinese-American kitchen, in the mind of the oldest son, whose mind's mended by electric curtains, who could not speak for vacant decades, as entropic grasses grow over cemeteries. But here is the Chinese immigrant, a stooping figure among sacks of onions, vinegar, and bitter melons, a yellow lemon contained entirely by its rind. And people, after a while, his own children, don't like the same rice, the same telling of the same stories. Because beneath worlds of sugar and love, the basic routines. The father who told of his grandfather, who told of opium in China, that for the peace it gave, a man his daughters sold. Okay, now. I think the most popular poem of mine that the general public likes is a love poem. It's a delayed love poem. It's called Love Me When I'm Old. No need to love me when I'm young, because I can only love myself then. No need to kiss me under the apple boughs, any pair of fair arms will me arouse. But love me when I'm old, when extremities me go cold, when neither food nor drink will do. For the years we drift through, pretending we each other didn't know. Now love me as we stand in snow. This is probably the best poem I'm going to write. Not the best poem I've written, but my last good poem. Okay, it's called Here I Am. Here I am dying for poetry when others live for it. Here I am living for poetry when others die for it. It didn't begin with a baby that was never held, a child whose name was never called, a son who listened to a different drum, and finally, neither a man who scorned love at the end. It really was a normal course of events. A son when the old couple wanted a son, and he knows when to follow and when to pause and listen to the meandering woods sing the chorus. There was ample love in his crib, crisp sounds in the morning from the street's end. It was all the machinery present in the game of chess that the lowly pawn gets promoted into a knight. Heartbread, there was crumbs others discarded, unlikely places where a song can eke out of a rock. He searched for what was his, and finally finding what was the lot of every man. So tonight, he retires early, even though it's not the plan. He knew that even as one travels daily half the remaining distance, it still can be asymptotically too big a gap to span. He rests his case, the defense offers no more pretenses. That was me, a man who found rest in the end, when decidedly he never expected this breath of wind. I'm going to read the poem that Leopoldo liked so much, that how we met. And if there was a choice between reading about reality or seeing touch of thought his braille, the volume of the world funnels in through a gap in the window. The old factories in the industrial distance, the salt of the Bay Area. If there was a choice, I meditate on plum blossoms. I wouldn't eavesdrop. I wouldn't view flowers on horseback, nor would I eavesdrop the crescendo song and dance behind the imperial door. If there was a choice, I choose to be poor, unnoticed, unrewarded, unfettered by ropes of language, social mores. No, if there was a choice, I would not obey the rules of pickpockets, dog meat vendors, paperback writers, insurance salesmen, tavern bouncers. I just amble, stare at the cracks in the sidewalks, and envision a dandelion shooting through, yellow and fine. Or imagine a blackberry vine in the inner city, grown okay without city rain. Heaven's pennies it stains from taking. If I had some choice, I have a morsel of rice and some tea, hot or with ice. And from beggar to king, if the choice was really mine, I simply choose to be kind. I think you can find my poems everywhere. So, but these are the books. This one, the Penn Oakland Award, was a finalist for the first book award from Poetry Society America, 1998, Kaya Press. This is 2013, Kaya Press won the American Book Award. And this is my self-published memoir, Paper Sun Poet, in rice bowls. These are available on Amazon and other places online. And you can find them in the public library. Thank you very much. And let's festivities begin.
The title of this poem is Addendum. It was the spring of 2020. The plague had just arrived at the exact moment Chrysanthemum 2020 had come off the press. And Koon and I were spitballing about how to publicize it, what with all the poetry readings canceled indefinitely, and the unlikelihood that there was anything we could do to make Goldfish Press go viral on social media. When I suddenly had an inspiration and said, they should do an article on you in Rain Taxi Review. You're way cooler and more interesting than the garden variety literary types they usually plug. Now, the only reason such an ambitious scheme even occurred to me was that I had started to see the names of some Pacific Northwest poets doing reviews. And Paul Nelson actually got a feature-length interview with Charles Potts published. And I'm thinking, what's Paul Nelson got that I ain't got?
Not a hat.
I'm a quasi-professional. Flash forward through a couple months, and I'm sending Koon the final draft to look over before it goes to the editor. And Koon emails me back, what happened to the part about the China doll? Which was the story about when Koon was a 7th grader in Aberdeen and working with his father and uncle in a restaurant that was, for all intents and purposes, a front for the local brothel. That's a great, great story, I replied. I love that story. The thing is, I get a vibe off these Rain Taxi guys that maybe they might be just a tad on the uptight side. And I don't want to frighten them away. We better save that one for Hollywood. So the interview came out, and much water has passed under the bridge since then. But years later, my emission still remains an irritant to my soul, like the proverbial grain of sand in an oyster. For I had censored the poet, and surely I was going to hell. And what made me do it forced me to compromise myself forever in the eyes of the muses. Was it fear of the morality police, those self-appointed guardians dwelling on both sides of the political fence, those putrid descendants of the actual cops of 1968, busting the poets' skulls with nightsticks, be it in Chicago or Czechoslovakia? And who do these cops report to except the establishment and its tribunal of literature, stacked with all the academics and careerists and politicians, propagandists and poseurs, each with their own little boxes and agendas, and all going on about truth and beauty, when the fact of the matter is, these people can't handle the truth. The truth in first thought, best thought. The truth in the fishmonger's curse. The truth in the stupidity of the child. The truth in the dark longing offered without excuse. The truth in the cheater's luck and the loser's hubris. The truth in congealed ketchup and pomegranates out of season. The truth in dust mites and dental telepathy, which is when intergalactic beings communicate with us through our teeth. The truth in blissful serial dreams spoilt by gray dawn's bleak chill. Or the truth in rented rooms. Notice how I did that. Anyhow, that's my addendum. Better late than never, and suitable for an immediate insertion in any of the still existing issues of Rain Taxi Review Fall 2020. Oh, wait. It was an online-only edition. Okay, here's what you do. Print it out on a sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, slather the back with super glue, and stick it on your computer screen. There. Now what the hell are you going to do? Nothing for it but to turn off the machine and walk through the door into town. Maybe even wending your way to the yummy House Bakery in the I District. Because Seattle snobs be damned, Chinese bakery coffee is the best coffee in the world. Next to AA coffee, but that's another poem. So get yourself a cup of that and a little bag of egg tarts. Find a window seat, produce a pen and scrap of paper, and look out into the street. Because out there is life, and life is poetry, no matter what they try to tell you. Thanks for letting me share.
Hear me? All right. It's great to be here. It's great to meet Koon. He's been the inspiration, hello Koon, behind my daughter and my trilogy of haiku books, which I will hold up. And I'm just going to read a short section from The Nostalgia of Water. This is the QR code generated by Janae. Janae, are you here? Ah, thank you, Harney. Okay. And then these are the other two, and honestly, it was were it not for you, Koon, these would not exist, because we wrote these under the auspices of Goldfish Press. Once I sent one, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll take it. I was like, whoa, let's do another. So I do want to just say that it's been a great experience to get to know my daughter as a writer via this correspondence in haiku, and I highly recommend that you try it with your relatives. Yeah, I'm reading from paper because my aging eyes can't read text anymore. So what I'm going to do is go like this when it's her voice, and this is me. And the title is Sleepless. Time obliges their open-eyed, taunting nature, how babies don't sleep. Mother, babies sleep a lot. Enrolled in law school, got a D in torts. I'm mourning the night, dancing him to sleep again. His eyes shut, I breathe. All-nighters, the rule for new moms. The brown fog of winter dawn. Under such duress, we walk and waltz new sprouts. What long hours without bivouac. How at night we wait each memory collapsing. Time is made of dreams. I live between times, an elder plagued with chronic pain and sleeplessness. In the parking lot of Trader Joe's Issaquah, many moms have cried. The arising sun, its confusing rhetoric, somehow we circle. We muddle through, Bubby says, this woman we call the oracle, worship. Wakeful pendulum, I fear not sleeping like you, grafted suffering. Can you not hear me?
It's just a little bit difficult.
Difficult to hear me?
Yeah, just a little bit louder.
Okay, a little bit louder. Is that better? Thank you for your gesture. Sorry I didn't pick up on him sooner. Okay, did you hear about the wakeful pendulum? Yeah.
Oh, do it again. Yeah.
All right, this is Jocelyn. Wakeful pendulum, I fear not sleeping like you, grafted suffering. Fear-based behavior passed on from mother to child, i.e., sudden frost. How a night can hold friendship, a daring, no sleep, any number, 4. How a night saddens quiet, full of hours and buds, a nightmare almost. My baby writhes here, plagued by erupting molars, learns he will suffer. Suffering baby equals disruption for you, Madonna, goddess. His rosebud lips part, reveal chiclet teeth dawning, erupts with secrets. Baby teeth fall like sleet through my fingers. I wake, cries in the next room. Broken glass forgives. I compulsively check apps. There were some earthquakes. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Koon. Thank you, Koon.
So if you are a student of Koon's poems, you will hear a lot of Koon's poems in here that are embedded in this long poem. This is called I Touch Your Hand, and it's for Koon Woon. At the Tokyo airport, a child alone. Where are your friends, your friends? Where is your family? Now evening encroaches almost without mercy. But before all is lost, another child, 30 years before, rescues a kitten from a well. We were dirt poor, Dad always told me. Poor as when wealth was squirrel stew, 6 siblings, a victory garden. The old man drove us kids to catechism 3 sheets to the wind, he'd say, assuming, I suppose, that we'd die in a state of grace. If you fold a piece of paper once, then unfold it, it will tend toward the folded position. That's because paper has memory. You are the best poker player in your village. In lean years, you eat your pet dog. Later, 10 of you in the housing project. Was your father kind? You say, he wasn't unkind. You met Dad at Community Mental Health 3 at Harborview. He was dressed in a suit, which made him stand out. When you asked his occupation, he said, lawyer. For me, those were the lost years. I was in college, newly married. I'd meet up with him at the Seattle Center and furtively slip 10s into his briefcase. You thought, sure, he's a lawyer, and I am Napoleon. He was both fierce and fragile then. I wanted to save him, but you cannot always save wild things. Sundays, you'd meet at the Hing Hay, the happiness of swallows. Dad would bring The Atlantic, check marking each completed article in the table of contents. You'd come from China to Aberdeen, to California, Oregon, Seattle. He'd landed here from Iowa with a detour as a merchant marine to the South China Sea, and then on to the King County Prosecutor's Office, private practice, detoured by a rage that was not wholly his, but something imposed. For a time, we reached into our pockets to find words, but only possessed cold stones. He most loved words. He loved you. In the lost years, I thought he was alone. What if he and I were walking one day, I mused, and he said, "Can you smell the sap?" And I did. What if he said, "The wind is brisk, it has a bite," and I said, "Let's go inside"? What if he said, "Sit at this table, here are my friends, here and here and here," and I touched each hand. Now it is your hand I touch. You who read him your poems, respected his mind, brought egg foo young when he couldn't venture out, spoke at his funeral. All the doctors and daughters and sons did their best, but I think you saved him.
All right. So after meeting for the first time in early 2024, while participating in a West Seattle poetry group, Koon Woon and I began to meet up at a local coffee shop during my lunch break every week or so. Koon at noon never had an agenda, just a hot drink and flowing discussions of our common interests in math and physics, the subjects we both studied as undergraduates, a little philosophy, and of course, poetry. This was always a highlight of my week. Not only, I'm going to try not to get cracked up here. Not only did Koon become a valued mentor to me, but a close friend who is never far from the center of my heart. Cafe thought experiment for Koon Woon. Love should be avoided in poetry. A cliche too abstract for its own good. It's better to bury it in concrete images that stick to the ribs instead. What I thought Koon may have said. Cafe thought experiment. I'm thinking teardrop. A shape that's equally suited for slipping through the air as tearing through the heart. But my colloidal theory, you say, falls apart as sadness approaches infinity, or the cafe front door. You ask again, what shape would love take if it fell from a body? So now I'm thinking concave, like a diaphragm pulling espresso-scented air into the lungs, or a dragster parachute, which pops after a quarter mile's worth of blur, slowing the eyes enough to realize the chrysanthemums on every table. But the drag coefficient, you say, becomes imaginary as breath approaches the limit of 1. What about a particle subject more to the mechanics of dream and whim than those of quantum? Maybe, you say, it's not a matter of matter, but one of motion and emotion that defines the shape in question. Try to think more like the water chasing water outside this window. We are who we are because of the flow. You take a sip of tea and then the pen, and you flip over the poem about the CIA bugs in your attic and draw on its back. You draw Poisson distribution, a chance dance of raindrops. You draw fluid dynamics and laminar flows. You do all this for nobody but me. And currents of thought stream easy as Ohm's law. You are not here for the tea. We let in Schrodinger's stray, very much alive. We dive into a pool of prime numbers. Our splashing catches the ire of others, hovering over overpriced drinks and paper cups. We even find your Uncle Harry a warm room at Hotel Infinity for the night and for eternity. And always, your wise counsel. Love should be avoided in poetry. But sometimes we must break the laws of poetics, if not thermodynamics. Do you see your so-called love particle? Scratched on the backs of our printed poems, I see diagram and graph, symbol and variable, a mathematical buffet in royal blue, but no particle. But something catches my eye. Above our inked blue musings and the Fibonacci curls of steam rising from your English breakfast, I look up to you, the gentle man, who honors me like a son. How can I not smile at this? This proof before me that love is the entropy in a shared cup of tea. And then I see it, this flow of the most elemental particles. Your lips in the shape of a smile, reflecting mine. Quod erat demonstratum.
Like, woo. This was written for Koon from Texas, where we lived for a few years. Can you hear me now? How's that? Better? Poem for Koon on a rainy day. Born in China and kept close under grandmother's wing, you grew to be a swan. Migrating to America and wandering her streets, you built bridges with rice and words. You caught the truth in your bowl. The muse eavesdropped on you as you moved from rented room to rented room, alleyways blooming with roses. We are the result of a ripple. The duck that pecks out of its shell has been sharpening that egg tooth, crashing through that ivory wall since before the invention of time. Back when life was hunger and fire, flight, ecstasy, survival. I am glad your pacemaker was updated, that the pen meets the paper. I have a few questions for the world. What is it in American Asian cuisines when that sweet and sour hits a deeper note, as if one falls down centuries of candied orange peel into a bed of smoked salt and 5 spices, pepper and fennel, star anise, cinnamon and cloves? Why did our fortunes fall out of cookies, and we out of faith, and back in again? The back into it is the best part, and we read ourselves like tea leaves. There's time now for nothing but poetry. And the willow and the wind, I just wrote for Koon Woon from Bellingham, where we are now, and where I last saw Paul and his friends. The willow and the wind. When I walk around the pond, there are willows. I do not count them, but each year there are more. bearing bright yellow trunks and limbs. This year, the bullfrogs have blue faces. We are not allowed to love them because they are invasive. They sing the wonderful song of my childhood, but it has been said they belong more in the South than the Pacific Northwest because they eat the locals. The pear tree is old and still makes fruit. Vulture carries my joy in circles. The field has been hayed, and the next day the altocumulus clouds line up, looking already raked, like someone came to harvest the sky. Do we reap what we sow? Do we dream in tadpole? The wild plums, tansy, long-lasting daisies. The trumpet vine crawls along the ground, seeming to not even care or notice its flowers are hidden under the fir tree. I have known my friend half my life. Here, he has created a place where we can hear each other's voices like frog song, see each other's voices like clouds, like flowers, like stars. The willow has always made the wind feel right at home. Thank you so much.
Hello. I'm going to start with a poet Koon Woon published, my friend John Gorski, who passed a couple years ago. This is on Goldfish Press, Night Like Black Coffee. There's a couple extra copies. They're free if you want to read more of Gorski's poetry. Do not bring the dog onto the bus. Do not bring the dog onto the bus. With his insistent, raucous decibels, he makes the iPad users nervous. The tiny canine looks so curious in beret and blue shades, just raising hell. Do not bring the dog onto the bus. He solicits sips of a big gulp from a writer lounging in the stairwell and makes the iPad users nervous. Conversations by Make America Great Again types and young anarchists rise to a babble. Do not bring the dog onto the bus. But this Chihuahua's razor yelps shred their rants, angry and political. He makes the iPad users nervous. At last, the driver drops off this chaos and his owner at the new Taco Bell. Do not bring the dog onto the bus. He makes the iPad users nervous. John Gorski. And Koon Woon's also, besides being supportive of me and encouraging of my poetry, he was an early supporter of punk poems. He also encouraged my nephew. My nephew and I collaborated on a series of poems, and Goldfish Press put them out as a collaboration. So I'm lucky that I can publicly thank Koon Woon for the support. So how this happened is my nephew sent me some poems to read of his, and instead of marking them up and sending them back, I wrote a poem using the same title as a response. So this is a call and response. The first one's by my nephew, Jordan Moss. These streets leave me bruised and bleeding. If a hand bleeds, then all falls down and apart. If eyes are keys to the soul, then hands are the lock. Before you know it, I won't do anything. Paralysis will have me. Each move, I'll hesitate and say, look at these hands. Who could I lend them to? You too will stare down, seeing your dents, bruises, bleeding, peeling too, and you'll ask yourself the same. Until there we are, in a room with no eyes, our hands covered by miles of bandages, looking for a pair of scissors. My response: these streets leave me bruised and bleeding. When you fall, nothing stops you. Not air, not hands, not sirens. Your skull gives way to anarchies. A rush, then blankness, then concrete. Thank you. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Oh, good, good, good. I was just talking to Koon, and we were trying to figure out how long we've known each other, and we figured maybe somewhere between 20 and 30 years. But we know we met at the Hugo House. But I had heard about Koon before from Nelson Bentley, who said he was one of his best students, and Nelson at that time was missing him. But he talked about him. So when I had a chance to meet him at Hugo House, I was delighted to meet Koon, and we've been friends ever since. And Koon has been a wonderful counselor and friend and mentor to me, not only as a poet, but as a counselor, because he offered great counsel and friendship for me because I have a son with mental illness, and Koon has great insight and friendship, and he has been such a good friend to me, and has helped me so as a mother of a son with mental illness. So I just want to recognize him for that great kindness, and that's a word that has come up today, and I want to talk about Koon's kindness. And so I picked a poem. I went over my poems, and I picked a poem that is called Heart's Song, because I want to recognize Koon's great kindness, because he has extended kindness, I think, to everybody in this room, and to all of us. That's what I remember. That's what I know about Koon, is his great heart. And so I'm reading a poem called Heart's Song. Think of all the animal spirits, yours and mine, and all the creatures standing in the world's bright air, hearts filling and emptying. Horses, their great ventricles opening and flooding, the hummingbird's pump beating faster than its wings. Whales, with their half-ton hearts, valves the size of hubcaps, and our fist-size muscle pulsing adagio and andante. And think of this earth whistling through space to a billion unheard drums, each thrumming our own rhythm. Like a chorus, all of us spinning, held by the pull of the earth's hot core and the dark throb of our own. And then I'm going to read another poem that I read the last time I read here, called When Mother Took Her Hair Down. When Mother took her hair down in order to wash it, we gathered round to see it fall nearly to her knees, the strangeness of it. She was an ancient sorceress. Her hair fell in wondrous waves. We imagined what could live there in the dark curtains, small animals, fairies perhaps, ladders for little people who built homes in her tresses. We played peekaboo through its drapery until she shooed us so she could wash it. She sat before the fireplace to dry and bent forward so it cascaded. We could see the fire through it, so she brushed it. We huddled close to her feet for warmth. She brushed and brushed. We asked to help, but our small hands did not have the strength to handle its thickness, its body. Then she gathered it up in that funny way of hers, held a strand in her mouth, fixed two thick braids, then wounded them round in the style of her Icelandic mother. She looked old-fashioned and regal, like a visitor from a faraway country where nature is cruel and a woman is prized for the hair on her head. This one is called Jackpot. That time Dad hit a big jackpot, gamblers bent 3 deep around the table. They pressed in to touch his sleeves. They wanted to catch his luck like a cold. Hookers swarmed him like honeybees, and he was an orange blossom. The room sang with the sound of payoffs from glowing machines. That night, we dined late. He got up early to buy a green Cadillac, the color of money. We sped across the desert, doing over 100 when we were pulled over. He got a ticket from a cop looking for big winners, speeding out of town in big cars. I can still see that cop's face, his amber sunglasses glinting in the sun.
I chose this poem in part because Koon once said he liked it. And if you've ever been part of a poetry criticism group with Koon, you know he doesn't say he likes things out of niceness. He has no problem not being nice. He's not mean or anything, but when you're in a critical group with him, he really takes that role very seriously. Like this. So, this is Something Reminds Me of Thomas. Something reminds me of Thomas Merton this morning, and my thoughts drift to Asian streets and peoples, line-drawn landscapes with small figures. He died about the time I was being born, in the silliest of ways and circumstances unbefitting the world soul he was bearing. The humility suited him, though. A part of me holds out the possibility, the merest hint of being a portion of him reincarnated. The most recent, imperfect, cascading leaves of a weeping willow moving over stillness. A broken line of Asian monks collecting souls like charms, delighting in each and laying each down in the earth again, wanting to be of service to that greatest other we meet in trees and people and rocks rounded by water. Occasionally live a life that brings some indulgent joy into that world, like petals on a stream. The most exceptional, beautiful, and just another among many miracles to be forgotten after they pass. I think of small greatnesses, a fingertip in a stream, the electric awe of being right here. How easily I miss it. How missing. How in all the many lives I must have lived, these millions of years and sloughed off selves, it's sitting by a stream I should remember, touching all the monks and memories we have carved out of the rock together, tumbling out of our cells slowly into the open sea. And here I am again, lost in thought, trees nearby. My children but stirring into the softness of morning. I look to them as they stretch and yawn with days and days and days yet to come. And I weep inside myself, wondering, can I let it all go again? This one immediate now. The universe cries out in me, hold it, keep it, knowing full well the foolishness, always dying in the being born.
I have a tremor, and it's hard to get my points across, but it never stopped me. Okay. 2 years ago, I asked Leopoldo if he could find me a poetry critique group. He did, and Koon, Zach, Kory, Christian, Tobin, and David met at my house. How's that for all guys and Queen Bee me here? To critique our poems. Koon was our leader and helped us all improve our work. All 5 of us met for about 6 months. And then over the next year and a half, Zach and Kory offered to be my editors, and Koon agreed to publish my collection, Magpie. So, our critique group, a circle of poets with hopes and delusions, will come to a wealth of foregone conclusions. One says the world is found in a box. The other claims genius is found in their socks. All claim that poetry's this or it's that. Our busy brains spout words from under our hat. We slate and we sweat through our stunts of travails, yet somehow and somewhere each one of us sails. Prodded and hardened by Koon's kindly measures, we occasionally hatch some poems that are treasures. Thank you, Koon.
I saw Koon a couple weeks ago. I sent him an email. I said, Koon, the Jews and the Chinese usually hang out on Christmas. What are you up to? And we had lunch with David Gilmour and Andy, his son, and it was a lovely time, so thank you for that, Koon. This poem, I used a little bit of bibliomancy to compose. I took the chapbook Koon gave me, his own chapbook, The Burden of Sanity, and the first 8 poems, I took the corresponding letter of his name and that number to which it corresponds in the alphabet, so K, 11, O, 15, etc., and took that line and incorporated it into the poem. Koon Woon's West Seattle. The clarity of the night sky on this new moon, hidden by the atmospheric river, the earthen. Rivers lift, and it is considered financial news. I am wealthy in rain tapping my face this evening, tarrying on rocky beach, killing time with the dog in the waterfall, lonely guards of a few footfalls this morning, amid raindrops with the same cool flick, the heron croaked and flew a lap around the neighborhood and came back to land on the banks of where the creek will come back. Beneath its long wing, the dusk will bring night, and night will bring dawn and morning. What a fabulous series of tones of gray. Tonight we forget the burden of sanity and receive of mooncakes for the harvest. She wore green as water, and the Chinese cook diced vegetables. Heron's extended feet as it passes over, drops its offering.
Thank you, Koon. Welcome to Ephemera. We are ecstatic you are here in flux with us as days lengthen in this hemisphere, while Ecuadorians, as always, experience evenly demised time of dark and light. Can we fully know either? Shall we riffle on this theme? Shall we experiment with subtext? That small trait of single eyebrow raising, perhaps. With shadowy spells shortened, shall we emphasize brightness? This spot from which you engage, we honor with a pause, a breath, for no particular reason, except everything, and extract meaning or not. We bow to you.
Be okay, I'm guessing. I just want to thank Koon, one of the most gracious people I've ever met, like to me and my family. So thank you so much, Koon. Known Koon for a few years now, and his press is even publishing my new book, Satan's School for Girls and Other Works. I couldn't resist the plug. I'm sorry. It'll be out soon. I'm just going to read one poem tonight. It does reference the CIA's role in the murder of Patrice Lumumba. He was democratically elected leader of the Congo in the late 50s, early 60s when it was the Congo. So just wanted to let you know about that. If I would have written the poem today, I might have referenced something more current given what's going on, but this is called A Poem to Dance To. It can be hard to feel the rumba when you know the CIA helped to kill Lumumba, but these days, we could all use something to dance to. So why not shake those hips to a poem at the old C&P, where Koon Woon leads the cha-cha, charging with charm past the changing chairs, diving dangerous depths, leading lines, alliteration. And then a while later, in a waltz, Leopoldo will rhyme, swinging us past burning packages from Amazon Prime to the shores of Alki, where we find the ears of another time. But I sense some reluctance. You're not used to lines written in inky funk. So let John Burgess push us into the mosh pit of metaphors, bursting with the holy cosmic passion of a grimy punk rock chorus, feet bouncing along the great mystery, eyeballs zooming through the tables, through the chairs, through the walls, to the strobe light atoms that illuminate all of our hidden desires. And maybe, just maybe, my friend Julie will show up to let her thoughts breakdance on my flattened cardboard mind. And maybe, just maybe, you will hear me as I have heard you over these many years, meaning at the old C&P, where that ancient ballet begins with a pirouette and ends with a swan dive into the vernacular. Thank you.
You're gonna adjust that? I wrote some notes on a phone, which I don't usually do, but I find it hard sometimes to speak candidly, from the heart when, there's grief. And so I just wanted to say a few words about how I know Koon. So in 2012, I've moved back to Seattle after being away from the literary community for a few years. And I was doing some book reviews and critical writing for the International Examiner. And Alan Chung Lau asked me if I would review Water Chasing Water, your book that came out with Kaya Press. And it's an incredible book that was touted by Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the beat poet. And I knew that the voice that I was encountering in those poems was something truly special and exceptional. And, the poems in Koon's work weren't just a beat romanticism of life in SRO hotel rooms, but they were poems about the poverty of the Asian American immigrant experience, not the model minority experience. And in this way, they resonated something in me that was closer to my own experience. And these were poems written by somebody who looked like my own father, but wrote more like Arthur Rimbaud. And so you were an extraordinary voice to discover, in those years. And I have always felt such a deep love and affection for your work. I want to say also that everybody in this room knows what a community builder and a source of support you have been to others through your publishing projects and through all the work you've done in the community. And I think speaking from an Asian American's perspective, a Chinese person's perspective, there is, I think, a tendency for those of us of the diaspora to survive and fit in, to be of service to groups, to do what is of helpfulness and to make oneself useful. And, even as I hear that you're going through these cancer treatments at Fred Hutchinson, I hear that you're organizing this anthology of, poems for this group and community that you have loved and managing Microsoft Word documents. And I marvel at that. And I think I want to say to you that there is such beauty in the receiving as well as giving, as is evidenced by everyone who is here now to witness you. It is so easy to, I think, acknowledge the work that people do, the labor that people do in community, but there is also the person that you are, the being that you are that doesn't do, but is just simply one that is. And so this is to say that your poems have mattered. Your poems have changed the world and the culture that you have been in this place-time, and that you have mattered for simply being born in this time and place, and to have lived as this poet Koon Woon, as an immigrant coming from a place across the world. These things have really mattered. Sorry. So I wrote this poem probably around 2020. Koon and I had, I think, struck a nice correspondence through the mail, even though I live in North Seattle and you were in West Seattle. And there was a period of time where after my son was born, I was unemployed. And during all the holidays and kind of cultural celebrations, you would send him money, my infant son, and that is something that family does for one another. So I will always be grateful to you for that. Red envelope for Koon Woon. Across the Chinese diaspora, our elders insert crisp new bills into miniature red envelopes to be shared with the young on the occasion of a new year, a birthday, a benediction. These crimson gifts appeared on irregular occasions throughout my own girlhood. If grades were high, if times were good, if the family business was net positive that year. As kids, we anticipated the amounts inside the gilded ang bao based on our performance of what qualified or counted as good. My parents retired trade after trade. We spent years living in the red. The failed shiitake mushroom farm, the shuttered gift shop, an obsolete import business. We lived off credit. As an adult, I cataloged the collections of the Cultural Museum and encountered the red envelope that I didn't see for decades. Unsure of the Chinese characters printed across its front, I asked my peer from the mainland to confirm its use. She laughed. I didn't know the markings indicated its use for a wedding. Red with shame, I pictured a bride tucking the parcel into her cleavage. When I stopped depositing his checks, I pictured my father growing red with ire. He found other ways to reach me, posting unmarked envelopes of cash through the mail, imagining American dollars could be as secure a transaction as gold. The bills wouldn't expire or lose their exchange value. The bachelor poet has sent funds to my son since he was 2. He is not my boy's father. The $20 bills arrive enclosed within a plain white business envelope stamped with a chop. The image is of a goldfish transforming into yin and yang. No red ink, just black, just white, this note. My father once told me that his sister in San Francisco used to steal money from her gambler husband's trousers when he was asleep in order to send money to him in China when he was going to middle school. Those days, graduates of high school can become teachers. My father came to the U.S. at 18 and worked in the Oakland naval shipyards. He always told his children to go get the best education possible, and that includes non-school learning as well. He was a practical man. I am not so much. Enclosed is something extra for your son, Tomo. Best wishes, Koon.
For the noble poet Koon Woon. Koon Woon, the paper son poet, son of a self-made man, expert at the vat of sorrow, the abacus. Koon Woon had an Uncle Sum, whose family brewed medicinal whiskey designed to cure bruising and fix circulations. He's tired of telling the same stories because, quote, beneath the world of sugar and love, there are basic routines. Routines like publishing your peers, appearing at Facebook, telling of Honey Auntie's routine of collecting bees in her palm. This beloved poet friend told me once of another writer. I think he has a very high opinion of himself. Yes, this Koon Woon we want to hope will forget to die. In traditional Chinese medicine, it's said the pancreas has a head, neck, body, and tail, and lies horizontally on the posterior abdominal wall. The right side's the head, embedded in the duodenum. Long-term mental tension and emotional depression. The qi should not be stagnant. In the memory of hands, grandmas, widows for 3 decades are left the void of Confucian hands, telling Koon to think of lemon as the boatman pushes the river bottom with his bamboo pole. We say, stop the boat, Koon. Stay on this side. Forget to die. Koon, who saw the bloody Facebook photo of my head, I'd crashed my bike at 7th and Jackson. He thought I was attacked by the guy with a baseball bat like he once was. CID mayhem. Called me while I was at Swedish awaiting treatment. This ended up in a book deal. Haibun de la Serna, Goldfish Press. Koon Woon, who wrote, the human body is just like a corpse. You carry it around. Young Koon, cook at the Hong Kong Cafe in Aberdeen, making brown gravy, chicken noodle soup, sweet and sour, spare ribs, rice and chop suey for the steam table. All of which you'd feed the people carrying their corpses around this port town. Koon Woon born Groundhog Day, 1949, meditating during monsoons when neighbors put their pigs in attics. And we remind Koon, listen to the Cascadia atmospheric river rain, meditate, and forget to die. We'll burn moxa incense, pray the cancer abates so we can get a few more of your poems. Delay your reunification with mom and dad and Nelson Bentley. Teach us more notions like the humble is the root of the noble, and forget to die. Imagine the head of your pancreas remembers how to move chi. Forgive the guy with the bat, the Cantonese bullies. Forget the math of stage 4 and forget to die. Imagine the purple glazed flag flapping atop the old train left you in the ancient rain of West Seattle, which could be heaven, your safe haven, where you'd continue your quiet mission of modeling the humility we need amidst the ICE murders, the endless graft, the grifter in chief, climate grief, if you would only forget to die. Thank you, friends. What will you think if I sing out a tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears, I will sing you a song. I try to not sing out of key. The chorus, everybody. Ooh, I get by, little help from my friends. I get high, little help from my friends. Gonna try, little help from my friends. What do I do when my love's away? Does it worry you to be alone? How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad because you are alone? No, I get by with the help of my friends. Oh, I get try with the help of my friends. Ooh, I get by with the help of my friends. Do you need anybody? I need somebody to love. Could it be anybody? I want somebody to love. Would you believe in love at first sight? Yes, I know it certainly happens all the time. What you do see when you turn off the light, I can't tell you, but I know it's mine. Ooh, I get by with the help of my friend. I get high with the help of my friend. Gonna try a little help from my friend, from my friend. Thank you, thank you. That's up to you. Okay, this is a lot of people send poems to me. They would like to be here tonight, but some of them live in faraway places, including one woman lives in India, and one in British Columbia, and let's see, this lady lives in the North Carolina, I believe. She sent me a poem, a long poem. She was a fellow student with me at the University of New Orleans MFA program. So I just want to read her poem in honor of all the people who send me the poems. It's going to be an anthology, but who can be here tonight, and they can read on Zoom. Like they can see the program, but they can read on Zoom. So I want to dedicate this poem to all the people who send poems to me and they wish me well. This was for Koon Woon. Her name is Nancy Wright. She's a PhD in the political science, and she teaches the what's the college in New York? Post College, something like that. Anyway, we met online, and she came to Seattle a couple times to see me. We first met through Zoom boxes, my face, yours, and about 10 others, ready for intensive writing workshop almost midway through the COVID year of connection and isolation. We were talking heads, lidded jars filled with minds, bodies, and spirits, brimming with words, ideas, sentiments, and passion for poetry. You graciously offer us publication of a special issue of the journal Chrysanthemum. I submitted a soul-searching poem about monuments, a zany poem about Zoom, and a sonnet some critics would probably label archaic. Later, our talking heads met less often, but the words flew as we posted comments on computers for workshops and craft seminars. I was assigned the task of analyzing a trilogy of your poems, Cocaine Streets, Gold Glins and Glares, and The Power of a Stamp. You were assigned the task of analyzing my blank verse. We read each other's work, seeing less of each other and reading more of each other. Early in our communication, you honor me with a compliment. Words pour out of you. Later, you call my work exemplary and nearly encyclopedic, both with surprising gifts. You're among those who inspire me to raise my own standards, which are already high. I shall be grateful if I reach it, or even if I go taller and see farther for trying. Whether I not arrive at a new plateau or merely a foothold, only to grab the crag, the next stable and challenging rock, where more of your poems await my discovery. Thank you for all the people who send me poems, and they will appear in anthology. We'll send them out to people, and they can be purchased online for extra copies from Amazon. Okay, thank you very much. What will you think if I sing out a tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears, I will sing you a song. I try to not sing out of key. The chorus, everybody. Ooh, I get by, little help from my friends. I get high, little help from my friends. Gonna try, little help from my friends. What do I do when my love's away? Does it worry you to be alone? How do I feel at the end of the day? Are you sad because you are alone? No, I get by with the help of my friends. Oh, I get try with the help of my friends. Ooh, I get by with the help of my friends. Do you need anybody? I need somebody to love. Could it be anybody? I want somebody to love. Would you believe in love at first sight? Yes, certainly happens all the time. What you do see when you turn off the light, I can't tell you, but I know it's mine.